Today sees the first two codexes from the 9th edition of Warhammer 40,000 go up for pre-order. Both the Space Marines and the Necrons have got new codexes to support their new range, and yeah, they look amazing. Massive thanks to Games Workshop who sent us these books to have a look at. In this video we'll be having a look at the new Necron Codex, and then we'll also link our Space Marine review as well at the end of the video. So make sure to check that out if you're interested in the Astartes. But yeah, straight away off the bat, what a gorgeous looking book this is. They've gone for a really kind of stylised style really with these codex covers, and they look really good. I know there's been some mixed opinions about the new 40k logo, but they've got an awesome kind of old school vibe to me. But yeah, so the Necron's got quite a lot of new models in the Indomitus box, and we've seen loads of awesome stuff teased on Warhammer community. And yeah, with this codex we're able to grow our Necron legions and add all those awesome new kits. Quite a few big changes to how the army plays as well. Reanimation protocols has had a bit of a rework, but there's still ways of getting more Necrons back in your command phase. So yeah, we'll have a look through and check out all the goodies that are inside. So the first thing to say about this codex is that it is a gorgeous, gorgeous book. They've got a really, really nice style to these. Obviously you've seen the 9th edition rulebook. Similar situation there with really nice design and decent artwork on all the pages. And that's carried on through to the codexes. They are an absolute treat to page through. And the layout in some of the rule things are a lot better than the previous editions. We'll have a look at those in a bit. As per usual, the opening part of the book will be covering the lore, the background of the Necrons. We learn about the war in heaven and how they sided with the Catan in order to defeat the old ones, realised the errors of their ways, and then defeated the Star Gods after unfortunately becoming mere shells of themselves in mechanical bodies. So yeah, I played Necrons way back when. The metal models had come with White Dwarf, and I think we got 3rd edition maybe, the first proper codex with those plastic Necron warriors with the green rods. And you know, the lore's kind of progressed a little bit since then. We've gone more from, you know, Terminator wannabes to more space undead with a bit of an Egyptian vibe thrown in. So yeah, some really, really cool stuff in here. If you have not played Necrons before, don't know anything about them, then there's lots of stuff to get your teeth into here. Carrying on from the 40k rulebook as well, we also get some Warzone details, which I really, really like these. Nice double page spread with some artwork of the planet and kind of the events that are happening. Gives you a bit of a framing device to set your games in, which is really cool. But yeah, the book is absolutely gorgeous, filled with maps and some really tasty artwork. So yeah, we also learn about the various dynasties. So the Zurich Dynasty has been sleeping really since the Silent King left the galaxy, and now they're just awakening to enact his will. And that's something that we've seen in the 9th edition material so far. Essentially the Silent King has got a master plan of shutting down chaos entirely by creating a network of blackstone pylons across the galaxy that will create what humanity's calling the Pariah Nexus, that will shut off the warp entirely. Now, it has got a bit of a side effect in that it leaves mortals kind of drowsy and soulless and stilled. And in this book, we learn that the Silent King's master plan is to use those mortal vessels to reverse the biotransference. So yeah, essentially they are looking to reclaim mortal bodies by draining the soul out of everybody, and on the plus side it'll also destroy chaos as well, so win-win I guess, unless you're having your body stolen by a Necron. But yeah, really, really nice artwork of all the dynasties as well. Such a pretty book. It's really nice to see the painted models. It's always something, when I started the game back in 2nd edition, pouring through the codexes and seeing all the painted models always really inspired me. And yeah, this is certainly not a disappointment, this codex. Obviously we've got quite a lot of new models as well. which have all been revealed now. There's nothing hidden in there that we don't know about, but it's good to see them all arrayed ready for battle. So yeah, onto the rules, which is what everyone really wants to see. Yeah, Necrons have had quite a big rework, really. So we get the dynasties, as we always had done. However, only specific units can have that dynasty keyword. Some of them fall under the Triarch, so they don't get access to them. Catan don't get access to them either, which kind of makes sense because they're strictly not part of that dynasty. We also get a kind of order of how the Warlord's determined. So if you've got the Silent King, he has to be the Warlord. If you've got a Pharaon, that has to be the Warlord. And then it kind of goes down in rank order from Overlord to Lord. So yeah, you can't, I don't know, have a random Plasmancer as your Warlord for some reason. Gives it a bit more structure, which again represents the way that Necron society works, which is pretty cool. We've also got a limit of 1 Catan shard per Necron detachment as well. They are very, very tasty, but you're going to have to take multiple detachments if you want to fit them all in. So yeah, nice bit of structure we get there for building the army. We get the Dynastic Codes for all the main dynasties. So Mefrit, Solar Fury, add 3 inch to the range of ranged weapons, excluding pistols. Each time a model with this code makes a range attack that targets a unit within half range, the armour penetration is improved by 1. And when the Protocol of the Vengeful Stars becomes active, you can select both dynasties instead of one. So we'll see the protocols in a little while, but essentially it's a bit like the doctrines for the Space Marines, where a different one will be active each turn, but you select the order at the start of the game. Each dynasty has one protocol that they kind of specialise in, and when that comes up they get both of them, so that's pretty cool. Extra range weapons is always cool though, and the extra AP, pretty nice for Mefrit. For Novok, add 1 to charge rolls for models with that dynasty. Each time a model with a code makes a melee attack, if it made a charge move, was charged or performed a heroic intervention, they increase the armour penetration by 1. So if you've got, you know, high AP stabby stuff like Scorpio Destroyers, that'd be really cool. And then the Hungry Void you get both abilities for. Nefric, everything has a 6+ invulnerable save, which is really cool. And when they advance, you just add 6 to the move rather than having to roll. So yeah, really quick, invulnerable save guys. Very scary. And yeah, when they fall back, they can move across models and terrain as if they're not there. So ghostly, weird, retreating Necrons, which is cool. They get the Sudden Storm as their kind of preferred protocol. Nihilak is really cool. Every unit in the game with the Dynasty keyword has objective secured, which makes them really good. If you're playing against Custodes where the entire army has objective secured, that can be an absolute nightmare trying to get them off objectives. So really powerful ability. And it essentially ignores armour penetration of -1 as well. So they're a bit tankier. And then Eternal Guardian is their preferred protocol. Zerican Empire, the new one, they get a 5+ shrug against mortal wounds. It's just mortal wounds, so it's not quite as good as just a base, disgustingly resilient or something. But yeah, pretty handy to stop psychic powers, considering you've got minimal ways of stopping psychic powers in this book as well. There are some ways of doing it, but you've got no psychers as such. You also get to re-roll 1 wound roll when making units attacks. So that's pretty cool. You know, especially if you've got low number of shots, high strength weapons, being able to make it more likely that they wound is really cool. And they have the Undying Legions as their kind of preferred protocol. And now Sautek, whenever a morale test is taken, you can re-roll it. Morale is very brutal in this edition, so anything that gives you a bit more reliability to stop your units from running away is always really nice to have. What makes them really cool though is that they can fire rapid fire weapons at 18 inches. So you don't have to get quite as close with your Necrons in order to unleash absolute hell with your Gorse weapons. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And then Conquering Tyrant is their key protocol. Now if you don't want to use one of the kind of core dynasties in the book, you can create your own. by selecting combination of abilities here. And there's all sorts of stuff you can do. Add one to charge rolls, re-roll a wound with making attacks. You kind of get the best of both worlds. Obviously you're going to miss out on the dynasty specific stratagems and warlord traits later on, but you could tailor a really cool dynasty yourself by picking from these. So I really like these kind of things in the codexes that we had last edition, and it's good to see them continue here, where you can just tailor and create your own Necron force. We then get an absolute truckload of stratagems. So the way stratagems works in this edition is a little bit different. They've all got a different category that they sit under, and some rules or other stratagems can interact with them in some ways. So it could be that, I don't know, you've got an ability that lets you use a certain category of stratagem for free. This also means that in future codexes you could have, I don't know, a stratagem that makes you not able to use epic deed stratagems, for example. So I think they've future-proofed it by adding these kind of keywords and categories in there to mix things up a little bit. So we've got some cool stuff. A lot of this is similar to what we've seen in previous Necron Codex as well. So we've got some cool stuff like being able to remove units from the battlefield and put them, within 3 inches of a monolith, which is pretty cool. We have got some really nice stuff like the techno-ocular targeting. If you hit, you can spend that stratagem. You do not need to make a wound roll. You automatically wound. How cool is that? Yeah, I think that could be really good to guarantee some damage on. Say if you're shooting a knight or something with high toughness, and you only get your decent weapon through, pop 1 command point on that to guarantee the wound. There's some really tasty weapons that can kind of cut through tanks as well. So yeah, really, really nice stuff. Another cool thing is the Deathless Arise. So we've got the new Resurrection Protocol mechanic in the game. However, some characters, such as Technomancers, can bring back additional models within the command phase as well, which we'll look at in a little bit. For 1 CP, you can do that twice. Really, really handy. I think they're going to play a lot like an Age of Sigmar Death Army, where you've got characters bringing people back in the command phase, and then it's really tough to get rid of them during, shooting unless you wipe the entire unit out, which is cool. We have less stratagems based around upgrading units at the start of the game. Really, we've only got 3 that you use before the battle, and a lot of the stuff that worked like that previously has been reworked a little bit into upgrades that you can buy for characters now, which I think is a much better way of doing it. So you pay, some additional points to get a better version of that unit rather than it being based around the command points, which also gives you a lot more command points to spend with during the game. We still do get a few though, so, gaining the fair on keywords, so you can do My Will Be Done twice, or gaining extra heirlooms and the like. But yeah, absolute truckload of stratagems here. We're going to have a full write-up of what they all do over on the website as well. So if you are interested in the nitty-gritty of what all those strats do, make sure to check that out. One of my favourite ones is Revenge of the Doomstalker. I absolutely love the Doomstalker models. I'm going to have as many as I can fit in every army that I play, because I love War of the Worlds and they really remind me of that. The really cool stratagem for 2 CP. If a character is destroyed, a Doomstalker can unload and shoot at the unit that killed them as if it's the shooting phase, and then for the rest of the game they also get +1 to hit it as well. So yeah, beware if you're taking out a lone character, because you might get shot in the face by a Doomstalker. Quite expensive for 2 CP, but it's really cool. I like that. We then get some specific stratagems for the main dynasties. So Mefrit, Talent for Annihilation. Essentially, unmodified wound rolls of 6 inflict mortal wounds in addition to any other damage. Does state a maximum of 3 mortal wounds can be inflicted per phase, so that does limit it a little bit. I suppose it just reins it in to make sure that you can't do, if a whole squad of Necron warriors fires using it, you can't do like 20 odd mortal wounds. So Nefrek get Translocation Crypt, essentially lets them put Necron units into dimensional translocation, it's pretty much deep strike. Some of the Necron units have got this keyword that lets them teleport onto the battlefield. This then lets you put it on any other units apart from vehicles and monsters, so that's pretty awesome. Nihilak, Reclaim a Lost Empire. is really, really handy for match play. You can make your infantry units be able to shoot without failing an action. So you can move on to an objective, say, do raise the banners, and still be able to shoot without it failing. So yeah, that's really, really handy. Novik, Blood Rights. When they're selected to fight, you add one to the attack's characteristic. So again, really good if you've got a really aggressive, I don't know, Scorpio Destroyer based army or something. It'd be really cool. Sautek have got Methodical Destruction. Essentially with this they can daisy chain attack. So if a unit targets a unit, another friendly unit can add +1 when they're trying to hit them. So essentially if you focus fire, it makes all the other guys that are fired after the first one get +1 to hit, which is pretty cool. And then Zurich Empire, Empiric Dampening, it lets them essentially deny the witch, but slightly better. On a 4+, they just deny the spell. So pretty good. Like I say, you've not got a lot in the way of psychic defense, so anything that helps you do that is pretty handy. One really, really cool thing they've added in this book are upgrades for characters. So this reminds me of, 2nd edition, where you bought additional psycho levels or bought upgrades for your guys. In the previous edition, this was really kind of tied around command point upgrades, which never really sat right with me, because there was ways of farming a lot of command points and you get a lot of benefits for upgrading the guys. It seems much fairer to have it weighted to the points cost. So each of your cryptex can take an upgrade. If they do, it will increase their power or points depending on which one you're playing, match play or crusade. And yeah, we've got some really, really cool stuff, and it's going to be hard to pick what upgrades I'm going to give to my guys. But yeah, some really cool stuff like being able to force mortal wounds on units if you can roll over the leadership, modifiers to hit on friendly units, being able to add additional attacks to units, all really, really cool. There's also a way of resurrecting dead Canoptic and Destroyer units as well with the Hive. I think that would be pretty good. Essentially that would let you once per turn bring back a dead, Scorpio Destroyer, let's say. And since they're harder to resurrect using the new resurrection protocols, it's a pretty good one. So yeah, some really cool stuff. I can see a lot of people using the upgrades. Again, on the website we'll do a bit of analysis on what they all do. I do like the prismatic obfuscation to stop you from being shot, but the good old murder buckets do a similar job, so I'm not sure what the points to benefit cost of that one is. I do really like being able to bring back destroyers though. I think that's going to be pretty cool. So we get some Warlord traits, 6 base ones and then 1 for each dynasty. So Enduring Will. Each time an attack is allocated to the Warlord, subtract 1 from the damage. So since a lot of weapons across the 2 new codexes have got multiple damage now, that makes them a little bit more defendable, which is good. Eternal Madness, when you make a melee attack, you can reroll the wound roll. Immortal Pride, essentially when you take a mortal wound, you shrug it on a 5+. And you also gain an aura where you ignore modifiers for combat attrition, which is cool. Thrall of the Silent King increases the range of your aura abilities, which is handy as your force starts to spread out. As we'll see later, most Necron armies probably want to be clumped around the characters anyway, so I'm not sure extra 3 inches would really help there, but could be handy in some situations. Implacable Conqueror. Reroll charge rolls, so put that on a Scorpio Lord or something and have a whale of a time as your Scorpio Destroyers go rampaging into stuff. And Honourable Compatant. In the fight phase, your Warlord can choose to engage in honourable combat. If it does so, select an enemy unit. Until the end of the phase, add 2 to the attack's characteristic, but it can only target that character. So it's a bit like the old kind of challenge rules, but you get a benefit of getting extra attacks. Again, if you're going for a character killing build, then yeah, that'd be pretty handy. And there's some secondary objectives as well that will play quite well off that later on. For the dynasties, Methodic get +1 to the strength and attack characteristic of the Warlord. Nefric have got a -1 to hit or ability on themselves. Nihilak is like an always strikes first ability, so if it's an engagement range, it can fight first that phase. Novok, unmodified wounds of 6 do a mortal wound in addition to any other damage, similar to the stratagem that we saw earlier. Sautek is a 5+ command point refund. And Zurich Dynasty interacts with the new command protocols rule. So where you'd normally pick 5, you can pick 4 and have one of them covering 2 turns. So that's pretty handy. We also get a double-page spread of relics, some familiar stuff there, like the Veil of Darkness. Again, as usual, your characters, your named characters can't have these, but there's some cool stuff to throw on some of your support characters as well, which will be pretty handy. If you like Tachyon arrows, there's an even stronger 6 damage, really deadly version. Still 1 shot per game, so it's a bit of a all your eggs in one basket kind of weapon, but yeah, AP minus 5, 6 damage, you could easily cause a lot of pain with that. So we get the Katan Powers as well, 6 generic ones that can go in any Katan, and then a unique one per shard. The Void Dragons one's really cool. Essentially, you pick an enemy unit within 18 inches. On a 2+, they take D3 mortal wounds, and you treat your wounds as half for the purposes of wounds remaining on your degrading damage chart. So really good way of shutting down vehicles. Void Dragon's got some really nasty stuff for taking on vehicles, so being able to, you know, half the profile of a knight or something turn 1 is pretty good. Again, there's some really cool stuff here. The katana can only be taken 1 per detachment, so if you want to cheese out and have multiple katana, you're going to have to squeeze a few detachments in, which is a good compromise. What's really, really cool is we get some Necron-specific secondary objectives. So they're broken into the same categories as in the main rulebook, so if you wanted to, you could take some across them. But they look really, really good. So Code of Combat, score 3 victory points at the end of the battle for each enemy unit that was destroyed by a Necron noble from your army. So combined with that trait that we saw earlier, where they get extra attacks fighting characters, you could have an absolute monster of a general chomping their way through the enemy army, just decimating everything. I think it'd be quite easy to score high on that one if you've got a tooled out character who can easily finish off units. And there's rather than avoid them, there's not a lot that the enemy can do to shut it down. So yeah, I think that could be pretty tasty. Also interesting is Purge the Vermin. So it's kind of like a reverse of some of the secondaries that we've seen, in which you get 2 victory points for each table quarter that doesn't have any enemy units in it. So again, if you can use a lot of your kind of deep striking abilities and be able to hold kind of a lot of the board, yeah, if you can keep people off those board quarters, you'll have the points rolling in during the game. So I really like that one as well. So Treasure of the Aims, essentially after you finish deploying, your opponent will select 3 objective markers. You will get points based on the number of them you control. Again, that's pretty doable with the amount of stuff that you can have teleporting in, and you've got some movement shenanigans. So again, another strong pick. So, and then we've got Ancient Machineries, which is another cool action-based one. Similar to the last one, you work out 3 objective markers that are the key sites they're trying to get, and you have an action to try and awaken the Ancient Machinery. And each time you do, you get 3 victory points. So yeah, I really like these Necron secondaries, and I've got a feeling that we'll see a lot of this going forward with the codexes. So you've got secondaries that play how the army feels in the lore. So I really like that from a kind of narrative point of view. Plus, it'll be easier to get those than some of the secondaries, so it's kind of geared towards the way your army plays. So yeah, really like that. So yeah, regular viewers will know I'm a massive fan of the Crusade system. It's my favourite part of 9th edition, so it's really, really good to see a load of new stuff added for Crusade in the Codex. And in every Codex there's a load in the Space Marine one as well, so going forward through the various codexes, we're going to have a load of new goodies to play with for Crusade. Like with the secondaries, we get some Necron-specific agendas. You can only pick one of these, but there are ways of picking 2 with some of the upgrades that you can get later on. And again, it's fun stuff that is within the theme of the army, which is really cool. I do like agendas that fit with how you play. We get a load of new requisitions. So Cryptic Arcana is how you add those upgrades to your Cryptex in a Crusade game. You have to pay the power cost and the requisition point cost. making it more of a choice whether you do it or not. With some of the upgrades in the previous books, you just spent a requisition point to get those stratagem based ones like forever for free essentially. So yeah, there is a cost factor in there now, and you can only do it when you add it to your roster or when he levels up. So yeah, it looks pretty good. I think it's a good change moving it from a command point based ability to having the points cost in there as well. And yeah, I think it'll be really cool. Nice thematic thing as well. When your guy upgrades, you can give him an upgrade. So yeah, I really like that. We've got Glory of Subjugation. This is an interesting one. It will give your Warlord 5 experience straight off the bat, and you can immediately use the Fresh Recruits requisition for 0 requisition points. So if you can do that anyway, you may as well do this and give your Warlord extra experience. You can only use it after you have a victory though, so essentially it's your glorious Pharaon celebrating after the battle, which is cool. Cunning Advisors cost 1 requisition point. You use it when you add a cryptek to your order of battle. If it already includes a noble of the blooded rank, the cryptek gains 6 experience points. So essentially, if you've already got a leveled up noble, you get a kind of first level cryptek for free off the bat. You still have to pay his points to be in your army, but yeah, you get that experience. So that's really cool. Eldritch Life. It's 1 requisition point. Purchase a requisition when you add a Necron vehicle to your order of battle, or when a Necron vehicle unit gains a rank. If your Crusade force includes a Technomancer, the vehicle gains 1 weapon enhancement. So yeah, that is pretty cool. Essentially you get, if it gains a rank, you get to add 2 abilities, or you can give it the weapon enhancement straight off the bat when it's added to your force. So again, really, really cool. The Slow Decay of the Self is a really nice thematic one. Essentially, you can use it to make any Lord or Overlord gain the Destroyer keyword. So your guy gets slowly corrupted by the Destroyer curse and yeah, becomes part of the Destroyer cult, and you essentially replace the model with a Destroyer one. So really, really like this. That's really cool for kind of the narrative element of the campaign. Yeah, I'm probably going to use that myself and maybe convert up a Overlord converted up into a Destroyer Lord for when that happens. So yeah, it should be really good. We get some new battle traits, some really cool ones that fit your various units. So we've got Cryptek, Canoptic, Core and Noble only units. Core is something I haven't touched on yet. A lot of units in the game now, starting with the Space Marine book and the Necron book, have the Core keyword. This means that only certain rules and auras and stuff interact with them. So it means that you can't put these kind of abilities on Scorpio Destroyers, for example, because they haven't got the Core keyword. So it's a really nice way of making sure rules only work with certain units. But yeah, some really cool stuff there for the battle traits. We get something really, really cool though. The Necrons are a bit kind of full of themselves when it comes to their titles. And to represent this, every time you win a battle, your Warlord can gain another title, with some gloriously over-the-top stuff, such as Ruler of 1,000 Moons or He Who Bars the Gate. And yeah, every time they win a victory, they will gain another one of these titles. Every 3 titles that you get a new ability. So, for example, Arcane Collector, when you kill an enemy model that has a relic, the noble gains 2 experience points. Master of Empires, you can increase your supply limit by 1 after winning a game, giving you, more goodies to spend your requisition points on. So really, really like that. They do increase your Crusade level each time you get one of them. So your characters might be giving away a lot of command points, but, he'd probably be fine with that with his ridiculous over-the-top name. I hope we see something like this for the Custodies as well when they come out, when they can have their very, very long names after all the various campaigns they've been on. So yeah, really nice touch. We get some new weapon enhancements and battle scars. Similar to the battle scars in Beyond the Veil, they are a little bit double-edged, where they've got a benefit as well as a penalty to encourage you to keep the battle scar and play along with it. Some of them are not too bad. So Canoptic units, you can increase the attacks, however you can't use reanimation protocols and living metal. So it's a bit of a trade-off, but at least you get a benefit for it as well. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I do like these ones more than the ones in the main book, because there's some situations where I'd be like, actually, I want to keep that battle scar because it's really cool. So yeah, it's good to see the options for these expanded as well, because just out of the core book, if you play enough Crusade games, you start to see them all. So being able to mix things up by having different ones is a good thing in my book. And we get some new Necron specific relics as well, which is cool. So obviously if you gain a relic during your Crusade battle, you can give it one of these, and again they're split by kind of experience level of the character as well. So yeah, really like that. And again we see some gorgeous photographs of some of the studio armies as well, which is really nice to see. So that is the Crusade stuff out of the way. This is onto the main kind of core rules now and the abilities that the Necrons get. So we mentioned the Dynasty rules earlier. If you got the Dynasty keyword, you get those Dynasty abilities. Some units don't have that Dynasty keyword. Really all the Triarch stuff. So just bear that in mind, that some of your units aren't going to get the benefit of that ability. But you know, they've got other things that outweighs that, which is cool. We have a few unique Necron rules. So dimensional translocation. You can essentially set up the unit in hyperspace, and then it can come down in any movement phase more than 9 inches away from any enemy models. So essentially it's deep strike. Quite a few units have this. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Living Metal, start your command phase, you gain 1 loss wound. A lot of units seem to have had this added, so all your multi-wound stuff has really got Living Metal. So again, it just drives home the, you want to kill these Necrons, if you don't they're going to heal up again, which is cool. Speaking of healing up again, we have the new Reanimation Protocols rules. So these have changed quite a bit from the previous edition. No longer is it in the command phase, it now happens after an enemy unit shoots or fight. And essentially, if an enemy unit takes out some models from your squad, so what happens at the end of that combat, you work out the wounds characteristic of all the models that have died. You then roll that many dice, and on a 5+, you put it into a pool. You spend those dice in the pool to bring back models with that combined wounds total. So for example, Necron Warriors, you had a squad of 10, 3 of them die in combat, you'd immediately roll 3 dice, and on a 5+ they can come back for each model. If you had a unit with 3 wounds each though, you would need to roll 3 5s in order to bring a model back, making it a little bit tougher to get those multi-wound models back. Now there are rules that interact with this, but it can never be modified more than +1 or -1. So the best you're going to get on your reanimation protocols are 4+. So yeah, bit of a change. It kicks in after every enemy attack, so in theory you could have a unit that gets shot by a couple of different squads and reanimates models each time. Does mean, however, that you can't reanimate stuff that has died before that attack. So as your squad starts dwindling, you're not going to be able to bring back models with this rule anyway. There are other ways of bringing back models. It seems like there's going to be less bookkeeping doing this. It does seem like it's going to be harder to bring back those multi-wound models, but there are ways of doing it, as we've seen in some of the Canoptic upgrades and some of the abilities that units have. There are ways of bringing things back in the command phase, so we'll see those as we go into the profiles. Command protocols, we've also briefly touched on. Essentially, you've got 6 different abilities, which you've got 2 directives on each of them. At the start of the game, you will pick which turn these come into effect. So again, it's like the tactical doctrines for the Space Marines, only you get to pick the order, but it is at the start of the game. So you've got to kind of predict what's going to happen, and then you've got 2 abilities that you can pick one of during that turn to take into effect. As we've seen earlier, all of the dynasties have a protocol that they're associated with, where their units get both benefits. So there's some really cool stuff here. Protocol of the Eternal Guardian. If the unit did not move, advance or fall back, it treats as being in light cover, or if you get charged you can choose to hold steady or set to defend. So essentially you count as being in cover with the various different rules that cover now gives to you. Protocol of the Southern Storm adds +1 to your movement, and if it's performing an action it can still make attacks. So again, there's quite a few Necron specific secondaries where you might actually want to use that. So that's a pretty handy one. Protocol of the Vengeful Stars. Each time it makes a ranged attack on an unmodified roll of 6, the AP is improved by 1. Or each time they make a ranged attack, if it's under half range, they do not get the benefit for cover. So again, pretty good opening one really, where you can force through some extra AP at the start, or try and get the benefit of cover removed, which is pretty handy. Protocol of the Hungry Void. When you make a melee attack, an unmodified wound roll of 6 increases the AP by 1, so similar to this, but combat based. And the other option is that when you charge, you add 1 to your strength, so you can have some really strong Scorpio Destroyers and stuff with this. I quite like that one as well. Protocol of the Undying Legions. This is basically keep your guys alive. You add an additional wound when you have your living metal ability, and like I said, a lot of the kind of destroyer units and stuff have living metal now as well, so you can rapidly heal up your forces each turn. The other directive is you can reroll a dice in reanimation protocols, which are pretty handy. And then Conquering Tyrant increases your aura abilities, and you can shoot after falling back, but it's -1 to hit. So yeah, they're all pretty good. It's going to be interesting to see what people pick. There's some really good ones in there, some that factor around people's play styles, and again, some of the units and dynasty rules have things that interact with that as well. I imagine it'd be very easy if you got the data cards, because then you've got a visual reminder of what's happening. I do think you're going to need a cheat sheet, or at least some cards to remind you which protocol's in effect. So now we get on to the profiles themselves. Obviously quite a few units in here are old ones, we've got some new ones. We'll look at the new ones in a bit more detail. Also have a quick look at anything that's changed or anything that's a bit different. Like we said earlier, My Will Be Done only affects core units now. So these are going to be basically your main infantry unit, so you're not going to be able to increase I don't know, a monolith shooting by 1. So something to think about, and this is something that we see in the Space Marine Codex as well. I think this is a big change to how these aura buffs work. So yeah, quite interesting that some of these will specify particular units or core units, and I think that's a good change in my opinion. Illuminator Xerath has had quite an upgrade from his previous profile in Psychic Awakening. So he gets the new Rites of Reanimation rule. So this is a way of you bringing back Necrons in your command phase, as you used to do with the old reanimation rules. Essentially, he picks a core Necron unit within 6 inches, and it returns a destroyed model. If it's a Necron warrior unit, he brings back D3 destroyed models. So really, really cool. A bit like the undead summoning in Age of Sigmar. So a couple of characters that can do this. I think there'll be linchpins, the Force, being able to bring back these core units, because I think big blobs of warriors are going to be really, really good with this book. He can use that ability twice as well, as he's the Illuminer. So he could be sat there bringing back multiple units. It's pretty tasty. He still gets his mechanical augmentation rule. It is still a random buff, unfortunately. Obviously, you probably want the extra toughness or ballistic skill. Strength, less good for the Necrons, and since it's core as well, if it could affect the destroyers or the flayed ones, then that'd be really cool. The fact that it only supports the core units, then yeah, really you want to get the result of 2 or 3 on there. If he destroys one of my enemy models, he can also use that ability again, as if at the end of the movement phase as well. So pretty cool. You can only do it once per unit though, so you know, if he can kill a few models cast it a couple of turns, you can probably get all your core units augmented, which is pretty cool. I think really people will be taking him for the reanimation rights. He's a cryptek as well, so there's ways to protect him, such as the murder buckets. Unfortunately, as he's a named character, you can't give him any of the cool new cryptek upgrades though. But other than that, yeah, Zeras looks really cool. I'll certainly be using him in my army. You'll notice that some of the characters as well, such as him, have the Dynastic Agent keyword rather than a Dynasty keyword, which means you can take them in any Necron dynasty without affecting your rules. So Trazen the Infinite, for example, I'm going to do a Zerrican Dynasty force, but because he hasn't got a keyword for a different dynasty, there's nothing to stop me from taking him in the force without it, without him affecting the build. Some of the characters still have dynasty keywords in there though, so just bear that in mind. But yeah, there's a couple in here where yeah, you'll be able to take them without it affecting your force, which is pretty cool. We then have the new characters from Indomitus. The Royal Warden, no massive change from the Indomitus box. The Scorpio Lord is still an absolute beast. Again, their auras will be against specific types of units now. I think that's something we're going to see across the board going forward. So the Locust Lord is the new name for the Destroyer Lord. Similar kind of rules to the Scorpio Lord, but if you do want a floaty Lord, I do wonder if you'd be able to maybe kit bash one using one of the heavy destroyers and maybe a Royal Warden upper body maybe. I'm sure there's some opportunities for converting one that looks a bit cooler than the slightly dated now Destroyer Lord. Overlord has now got a consolidated profile bringing together all the new bits that were added in Indomitus. So yeah, other than that, nothing massively different there. You've got My Will Be Done again only on core units. And the aura is also on a core unit as well, so not too much different there. What is different are the various cryptek characters that we have. Now, one of the criticisms I had of the forces in the Indomitus box was that it was really hard to fit all the characters into a detachment without having to take multiple detachments. They fixed this in the Codex with the Dynastic Advisors rule. Essentially, if you've got a noble in your army, for each cryptek you take, a second cryptek can be taken without using an additional HQ slot. So you can now have multiple characters in there without feeling restrained by the number of characters you can take. So really, really helps, especially as these guys have got some really cool abilities. So the Technomancer is the old kind of generic cryptek. He is now essentially your resurrection specialist. He's got the rights of reanimation rule, the same as Zeras. And yeah, he can sit there happily all day, bringing back Necron warriors. Again, with the cryptek upgrade that we looked at earlier, you can use that rule to bring back destroyers as well. So could be very handy in a destroyer heavy army if you want him to bring a model back every turn. Could be worth it. Psychomancer is a really interesting one. He has got an ability where you pick a unit within 12 inches and roll 3d6. If you beat their leadership characteristic, you get to pick one of these 4 abilities. So either they cannot perform actions, and if they're currently performing an action, it fails, making him really good for shutting down enemy victory point hunting. You know, if you notice there's a big blob of troops trying to take an objective to get some victory points, just throw him at him and shut it down. Similarly, he can also make units lose the objective secured ability. So we mentioned Custodes earlier as being really good at sitting on objectives all day as they all have objectives secured. Use this ability on them to shut that down. They can half advance and charge rolls for enemy units, or they can force them to not be able to overwatch or set to defend. So he seems a really, really strong character to be able to do it. In addition to that, he has an aura where he reduces leadership and makes combat attrition worse as well. So Psychomancer seems a pretty good character. Chronomancer is the guy that deals with time, and essentially his ability is all around re-rolling charging, which is pretty good. It can also give target units a 5+ invulnerable save. So this guy can back up your kind of assaulty units that have maybe teleported in or coming off reserves to give him a bit more of a guaranteed charge. So yeah, really like that guy as well. Plasmancer, we all know and love from Indomitus, has had a bit of an upgrade. His Harbinger of Destruction ability now lets him do it after he advances, where previously if you fell back or advanced you couldn't do it, meaning that sometimes it was a struggle for him to get into position. Now he can merrily advance across the battlefield while lightning arcs out of him, striking down his enemies. I really like the Plasmancer. He's even better now with this rule, so yeah, really happy with him. Necron Warriors retain their profile from Indomitus. They've still got the number is Legion rule, so they re-roll reanimation protocols of 1, making them more reliable to bring back. I do think that big blobs of 20 of them are going to be really good. Yes, you're going to get affected by blast, but you've got more than enough ways of bringing back models to kind of outweigh that. A big block of Necron Warriors sat on an objective with some stuff to keep them alive are going to be there all day. Real war of attrition. So yeah, really rate the Necron Warriors. Immortals, Tesla has taken a bit of a hit in that it only explodes on an unmodified 6. So arguably, I think the Ghost Blaster's the better choice now for the extra AP. Really, for the Tesla Carbine, you were fishing for those 6s, so now it's only on them unmodified. You're going to get less of them. I'd probably go for the AP myself. They've still only got 1 wound as well, so for the points, I don't know. I think I'd still prefer a big block of Necron Warriors, but you know, you could argue that the Ghost Blaster is essentially a longer range Ghost Reaper. Now, I hadn't noticed this with my initial flip through of the book, but the Ghost Reapers had a massive improvement. So previously it was short range rapid fire, which meant you had to get really close to your opponent and able to get the benefit of it. But now it's Assault 2. That's really, really good. You can run these guys up and take the hit to your ballistic skill, or, what I'll probably do, stick him in a Ghost Ark or something, fly them up, get them out and unleash a lot of hurt. Strength 5 AP2 at 12-inch range with 2 shots each. Squad of 10 is going to do a load of damage with them. I really do feel that the Ghost Reapers, the go-to weapon on these guys. Maybe have some Flayer squads to sit back in the objectives in your deployment zone, but with the boards being a bit tighter in 9th edition, I really do think the Ghost Reapers are going to be excellent, even with that short 12-inch range. Yeah, I think they're going to be amazing. Canoptic Reanimator, again, very similar to the profile they had in Indomitus. They have got living metal. They've got their resurrection beam, which essentially makes you reanimate on a 4+. So again, as we've said, if you get a big block of Necron Warriors, stick a reanimator behind them. Essentially, they've got a 4+ ignore wounds after they fail a save. Yeah, very, very good. And like I say, if you've got the Cryptek there to resurrect them in the command phase, it's going to be really, really hard to shift Necron Warriors. So I am very glad I've just painted a big pile of Necron Warriors over the last few days. The Hexmod Destroyer is another new character. He is really cool. The model looks ace. Essentially, he can teleport in. He always overwatches on a 2+, because he's just that good with his guns. 6 guns. Every time it kills a model, it can make another shot with a gun. Those shots don't cause additional shots, so if you're lucky, you could get 12 shots off with this guy, hitting on 2s. Strength 6, so what, wounded on 3s against most targets. It's only AP -1 and 1 damage, but for thinning out, you know, big infantry squads, this guy's going to do quite a lot of damage. Yeah, really like him, and he looks cool. He's got the dimensional translocation rule as well, so he can teleport in, and again, his pistols are within that range anyway, so just drop him down 9 inches away and open up with your pistols. Really like him. Lich Guard have had a bit of a change. They are now doing 2 damage with their War Scythe. Pretty good profile on them. They look pretty tasty. Can't remember if they had living metal before, but they've got it now, which is handy. 2 wounds apiece, so you know, if you leave one on 1 wound, it's going to be fully healed in the next command phase. So yeah, that's pretty handy. Death marks seem really, really good now. So they've got their gun, 36-inch range, heavy 1, strength 5, AP -2, 1 damage. They ignore lookout, sir, so they can just shoot at characters all day long. They don't care. Any unmodified wound roll of 6 does a mortal wound in addition. Big squad of 10 of these, shooting down a character, shut down any auras. I think they're going to be really handy. Again, they've got dimensional translocation as well, so you can teleport them in. There's a stratagem that essentially does what their old rule does. When an enemy brings a unit in from reserve, you can bring these guys down outside of 9 inches of them. So, yeah, if you've got, I don't know, a character teleporting in with some bodyguards, teleport these guys nearby, take the character out. Yeah, I think we'll see some more death marks in list, which is good, because I really like the models. Flayed ones are back with a new plastic kit. These seem pretty scary. Low AP but lots of attacks, and every time they get an unmodified hit for 6, they get an additional hit. So, yeah, these guys could blend through some squads pretty well. Again, they've got dimensional translocation, so they can teleport in as well. So, yeah, these guys combined with the Cryptek that lets you reroll charges seems a pretty good early game offensive unit, which is good to see. Good to see a nice mix of fighty and shooty units in this book. Crypto Thralls, the murder buckets that we all know and love. Yeah, still pretty much the same as they were in Indomitus. For every Cryptek, you can take a unit of Crypto Thralls without taking a detachment slot. And essentially you cannot target Crypteks with ranged weapons if they're in range of a Crypto Thrall. As Illumina Zeros is a Cryptek himself, that will work with him as well. So I'll probably include a couple of Crypto Thralls near him so people can't snipe him as he's there resurrecting the rest of the army. They also have living metal, and they also have reanimation protocols as well. So if one dies, you can bring it back. And then it's got 2 wounds, so it's going to restore that other wound in its phase. So you really need to cause like full damage to them to wipe them out. I really like them. They're really cool. Scorpio Destroyers can now be taken up to 6 in a unit. They are marginally cheaper in power as well. The plasma site's been separated out into a different unit now. So it's an elite choice that doesn't take a slot if you've got a Destroyer Cult unit. Because they're different units though, it makes it a bit more dangerous, the whole risk-reward element of the plasma site. He was handy before as a single model you could take off for reanimation protocols. Now, as he's a separate unit, yeah, it's still a gamble killing that Scorpio Destroyer. Anything that you kill as well, you're not going to be able to do reanimation protocols for as well, because it specifies it's from enemy attacks. So it makes that one destroyer that you're losing more of a risk. However, arguably, it's often worth it for the extra strength in attacks. Again, especially with some of the protocols we've seen, which can increase your strength further. Big squad of 6 Scorpio Destroyers with a plasma sight, fully buffed up, will be very scary to face. So yeah, really like them. So the Frag Stalker has got new quantum shielding rules. This has changed quite a bit from its previous version. It now gives you a 5+ unrunnable save, and wound rolls of 1 to 3 always fail, regardless of strength of the weapon or any special rules they've got. So essentially you can only wound them on a 4+, even if you've got a super high strength weapon. So not as powerful as it used to be. It's going to be easier to kill the Triarch Stalkers, but against high strength weapons that may be wounding on 3s, you push that down to a 4. So a bit of a trade-off. It's pretty good. Targeting relay, if it shoots an enemy unit, any friendly Necron unit shooting the same target, reroll hits of 1 as well. So yeah, that's pretty handy. We then come on to the Katan. So they're all 18 power and they're all elite choices. With the size of it, I kind of thought that the new Void Dragon might be a Lord of War, but it isn't. It's an elite choice. You can only take 1 per detachment, so that does limit them a little bit. They're all really, really good. The Nightbringer in particular, 6 attacks, hitting at strength 14, AP -4, d6 damage. You cannot take invulnerable saves against him. and you cannot use any rules that ignore wounds. So you are taking those rules, even if you are, I don't know, a Death Guard with an invulnerable save. You're not getting anything against that. Your invulnerable saves rendered useless by the entropic blow, and your disgustingly resilient is shut down by the drain life. Against Custodes, this guy is gonna have a field day. He still uses the same old model that we've had around for a while, so it's a bit of a shame we haven't had new Catan models for these guys. Yeah, I think it's gonna be really cool. The Void Dragon is gonna make vehicles everywhere cry. This guy seems to specialise in just ripping vehicles to pieces. Got a really cool weapon, the Spear of the Void Dragon. Essentially you pick a unit and everything under the line between you and that target, you roll to hit. It does extra damage against vehicles. It's got massive AP. It is really scary. All the Catan have a 4+ invulnerable save, and they cannot take more than 3 wounds in the same phase. So it's going to be really hard to kill them as well. They're going to be really, really good. He also heals up for each vehicle that he kills to a maximum of 3 per phase. Yeah, I can see Catan causing problems for everybody. I really want to get a Void Dragon because the model looks amazing. Nightbringer, I think, is going to be really handy too. It's one of the things with this book. It's going to be really hard picking what fits in your army because there's lots of good stuff. I think Games Workshop are doing a great job at making sure that all the options are viable. We also get the Transcendent Catan from the Tesseract Vault. He's slightly less cool than the other ones, but gets some awesome abilities. He still gets the no more than 3 wounds per phase roll as well, so yeah, pretty cool. I think I prefer the Nightbringer and the Void Dragon myself though. Canoptic Spiders, not massive differences. They can still bring back Scarab Swarms. They have reanimation protocols, so if you have units of them and you are really lucky and think you can roll 6 5+, then you can potentially get them back with that rule. Now, they have the Canoptech rule, so I believe that there's an upgrade that could let a Cryptek bring one back. I'll have to double check that though, because there might be a restriction on them being vehicles or monsters. But yeah, they're alright. Scarab Swarms, pretty much the same as in Indomitus. They do get living metal and reanimation protocols though, so they're going to be a bit more survivable, which is pretty cool. They still have the auto wounds on hits of 6s as well, so a big squad of these chomping through a high toughness target could be a good shout as well. Affidion Destroyers are a new destroyer variant. These are the weird wraith-like looking guys. They can tunnel into the battlefield, and again, we've got enough abilities to re-roll charges to make that a reliable tactic for you. Other than that, very similar profile to the Scorpio Destroyers. Again, you could take a plasma sight with them if you want. With these guys, he's probably going to struggle to keep up though. I'd probably stick in with your Destroyers if I was doing it myself. Tomb Blades, I've not used these in the past. They look okay. I think there's some better options for both the weapons and the abilities on these, but it's a nice quick movement 14 unit that can scoot around the battlefield. They're -1 to hit as well. And they've got reanimation protocols, so you can bring them back. As they only got 2 wounds, it's more reliable to bring these back as well, so might be an option for some people. Triton Praetorians look really cool now. They've got the Rod of Covenant, which you can use as a ranged attack or a melee attack. Does 2 damage, AP -3. Probably pretty good for killing Space Marines. I imagine we'll see a lot of Space Marines, so I'm probably going to take a unit of these guys. With movement 10, they're pretty quick. They don't have the Dynasty keyword, but they're Dynastic Agent, so there's some abilities that will work on them. Yeah, they look pretty tasty. They're not core, so you can't do some of the other buffs on them, but they do have reanimation protocols and living metal, so if you don't kill one, it is going to heal back up to its 2 wounds. So pretty handy. Wraiths again, I don't think there's any massive changes here. They have got some high damage weapons on them, which is pretty cool. Again, similar role to the Affidion Destroyers. Throw them into reserve, pop them up somewhere. Yeah, they can cause some havoc moving around the battlefield. We've got lots of options for quick movement in the Necrons. Annihilation Barge and the Doomsday Arc have both got the quantum shielding rule that we've seen. Doomsday Cannon still looks cool, again with the 2 firing modes, with the top one looking absolutely horrendous, but you can only fire it if you stay stationary. Looks pretty tasty, to be fair. We have got both the Locust Destroyers and the Heavy Destroyers. Interestingly, if you take a unit of Locust Destroyers, which are the classic Destroyer models, you can include a Heavy Destroyer in the unit. It's a bit of a shame that these models are so old. I think really people will gravitate towards the Heavy Destroyers. You can take them in units of 3 anyway. Both profiles look pretty good. The anti-infantry one has got a lot of shots, I think let down by lack of AP. But you know, with Blast, 3d3, if you're shooting at a big unit, you get a lot of hits in there at strength 7. The anti-tank one looks really tasty as well, and I think I'd rather go towards that. Strength 10, AP -4, 3d3 damage is going to ruin anybody's day. Again, they've got living metal and reanimation protocols, but having 4 wounds each is going to be very hard to reanimate those. As it's Destroyer Cult, again, that Cryptek ability that we saw earlier could bring back 1 each turn as well. Canoptic Doomstalker, beautiful, beautiful War of the World style walker. He is pretty tasty. It's got a 4+ vulnerable save, making it quite resilient. It's got a Doomsday Blaster, which is similar to the other Doomsday weapons that we've seen. 2 profiles, better one if it stays still. That will absolutely ruin things. Bit random with D6 shots and D6 damage, but if you get lucky, it is going to absolutely ruin somebody's day. Equally though, you could roll quite poorly for that and not do an awful lot of damage. What's really, really cool is that if it's within 6 inches of a unit that gets charged, it can fire Overwatch at them. And based on the wording of it, you don't have to use the stratagem, it will just fire Overwatch. And it also specifies that it's in addition to any other units firing Overwatch. So you could, say if you had a block of 20 warriors with a Doomstalker behind them, a unit of Assault Intercessors charge your Necron warriors, you could spend a command point to let the Necron warriors fire Overwatch, and the Doomstalker would also get to fire Overwatch for free with this ability, and it fires on its top profile. So really nice charge deterrent in the form of a massive gun that will shoot you in the face if you charge anything nearby. So yeah, it's going to be hard to work out a list because I want to include everything, but I definitely want a couple of these guys in my army because they look really cool. Ghost Arc is our dedicated transport. Has the new quantum shielding rule and has another way of regenerating your Necron warriors. So in your command phase, you pick a unit of Necron warriors and D3 destroyed models will return. Again, combined with the Technomancer, you are bringing back a few models at the start of every turn. In addition to the new reanimation protocols rule, I don't think there's going to be any issues with Necron staying alive. They are going to be an absolute tar pit. If you take big unit, backed up with a Ghost Arc, maybe have a Canoptic Reanimator nearby to up their resurrection to 4+. Yeah, it's going to be hard to shift them, and I may have ordered a couple of Ghost Arcs to pad out my army because I think they're going to be really, really handy. Doomscythe and Nightscythe have seen some changes. The whole keep people on the tomb world and teleport them in mechanics changed. Nightscythe is just a normal transport now. Contains 20. You know, you don't have to worry about you guys being off planet. They're just embarked within the ship. So makes it a bit easier to manage. Does, however, mean that there's normal deployment rules for them once they disembark. So bit of a trade-off. I think I prefer this version myself. Makes it a bit easier. And again, Doomscythe flying around with its heavy death ray. Looks pretty tasty. Strength 12, AP -4, D3+3 damage. Yeah, both the flyers look pretty good. Into the Lords of War, the Obelisk and the Tesseract Revolt are still there. However, the Monolith has joined them as a Lord of War now as well. So it's got some more wounds. It has got death rays it can take as an option as well, which is really, really cool. As before, you can teleport it in instead of deploying it on the battlefield. And you can set up units wholly within 3 inches of it, outside of engagement range of enemy models. So you could use the Monolith as a way of getting your units up the field and actually be within that 9-inch bubble. So yeah, it might make a good base of charges. It's cool. It's cool. The model looks ace. The Portal of Exile, 6 attacks, automatically hitting, and then strength 8, AP -3, 3 damage. Makes it a surprisingly good assault unit. Yeah, it's the tough bit is it's a Lord of War, so it's going to cost you command points to include it in your army. That may be the deciding factor for some people, whether they include it or not. And again, it's competing against the Obelisk and Tesseract Vault. Weapon-wise, I'd go for the Death Rays. I think they're really good. Absolute hurt put out by them. We then have the Silent King. He is really, really, really cool. We've seen some of his rules previewed on Warhammer Community, but the full profile is incredible. The tactical main here is that accompany him. Essentially, you have to allocate wounds to them first, and they've got 5 wounds each. So that's essentially an extra 10 wounds on his profile that you've got to chew through first. It's going to be pretty scary. And they're shooting back at you too with their Annihilator Beams. Strength 12, AP -4, 6 damage. Yeah. He's got a lot of cool aura abilities. A lot of the auras affect core units or Triarch Praetorians as well. So I mentioned earlier the Praetorians are pretty tasty. Have these guys near the Silent King to get the benefit of his abilities. Definitely worth it. My Will Be Done, he can use 2 times per turn as well. And again specifies Necron core or Triarch Praetorian units. He's going to be pretty cool. One thing to bear in mind, as he starts taking damage, he loses some of his abilities. So a bit like the Triumph of St. Catherine or Catacross in Age of Sigmar. Yeah, make sure you keep him in one piece, because he is going to get more less efficient as the game goes on. But I mean, his profile's really good. He's definitely going to be one of the best characters. He's also the first datasheet I've seen with the Supreme Commander keyword as well. So you can take him in the, I think it's called the Supreme Commander detachment, where essentially you get another detachment free. He also gives you some command points by just being in your army. Yeah, he's a lot of points. We'll have a look at the points in a bit, but I want to try and squeeze him in all my armies because it's an incredible model and has some really cool rules. And then the final new unit that we've got is the Convergence of Dominion. This is the scenery piece, and essentially it extends the range of your auras. So the command protocols that we mentioned earlier work within an aura of a character. These basically become beacons that extend that range. Cryptek units can do an action to redeploy them as well, so you can keep them moving up the battlefield. The gun looks pretty good as well. Assault D3, strength 4, AP -3, 3 damage. Not the highest strength in the world, but it'll chew through armour and 3 damage. You know, even intercessors will get chewed up by that thing. So I think they're quite expensive in points relative to what they do, but they look cool. So again, it's going to be hard to pick what we include in your army. So then we get a weapon profile section, cataloguing together all the weapons. I feel the layout is a lot better than previous ones, making it easier to reference and look up your rules. What is vastly improved to the previous edition of the game is how points are laid out. So where they can, they've included weapon costs within the profiles. Everything sorted by slot and then sorted alphabetically with page references to look up the units as well. This is such a better way of displaying all the points values of all the units in the game. It's going to make writing lists manually a lot easier than it's been for a long time. And yeah, we've got really cool book. Silent King, clocking in at 450 points is expensive. Monolith at 360 seems a bargain. One thing we've seen in this edition of the game is that points costs across the board have gone up really. This book has so many good options, it's going to be hard to pick a force. I think once maybe, tournament play returns to the world, we might see people gravitating towards certain builds. But certainly at first impression, there's a lot of good stuff, and you're not going to be able to take all of the good stuff, which in my opinion is a really good thing. So yeah, I think they've done a really good job with this. We also get a glossary with any kind of key rules abilities here that you can look up straight away in the back of the book without having to page through the codex. Again, absolutely brilliant thing to have. And we end up with a reference sheet, which is essentially a cheat sheet telling you all your key kind of army abilities as well. Again, brilliant thing. I don't know why they've not done that in the past. Yeah, really good change for the 9th edition codexes. So that was a look at Codex Necrons, the first codex for 9th edition alongside Codex Space Marines. Brilliant, brilliant book. Really, really well laid out. Really good content. I can't wait to get some games in with my Necrons, and I'm going to spend the rest of the day frantically making a million different lists. So yeah, the book is up for pre-order today. It is out next week alongside the Silent King, the Doomstalker, and the new Destroyer. Rest of the range, I imagine, will be coming over the next couple of weeks. We've got quite a few cool new kits to look forward to. So Necron fans, I think, are going to be absolutely spoilt the next couple of weeks. Pick up the Codex, it's really cool. Loads of Crusade content in it as well. I'm going to have a bit of a full write-up and analysis over on the website, so check that out. I'll put a link in the description for you guys to follow it. Our Codex Space Marine video is also out today, so go and check that out. Jay has done a bit of a deep dive into that book as well, so yeah, check out his thoughts on that on the website. But until next time, we will see you later.